everybody, I'm Dina with 9 Health, and today we are tuning in for Health Happens, our weekly live Facebook show that is on every Tuesday at 11 a.m., where we give you tips and great conversation about how to stay healthy. Today, we are going to talk about stress in the holidays, good stress, bad stress, and I am joined by Cherisse Davis and Renee Rivera here at Mental Health Colorado. We're all in the office, so thank you all for having us so much.
Thank you.
We are discussing something that we're calling the letdown effect. Actually, we're not calling it. It is something, and it came about because of me questioning this. I know I've always wanted to get sick when I'm bad stressed. It just is something I'm used to. However, a month ago, my daughter got married, which was so exciting, and I kept saying I'm calmly stressed, but it was a good thing. But within 36 hours after the wedding, I had an excruciating backache, and I was down for the count with a nasty cold, sore throat, the whole thing, all within 36 hours, which then made me say, good stress can make you sick too. And I Googled, which we always do, and there is something called the letdown effect. So can you tell us, what is the letdown effect?
The letdown effect is a pattern in which people experience a flare-up of a chronic condition or get an illness after some type of stressful event. And it could be something that happens in a few days after that event. And like you said, it's not necessarily always a bad stress. It could be related to a good stress. So, for example, someone's been working on a project and they start going on vacation. When they go on vacation, they realize like they've just gotten the flu or they feel really sick. What we're used to seeing is like students working towards finals.
I love that.
And after finals are over, they just like get really sick. So, it's starting to feel sick after some type of stress is over.
What causes it? Why does it happen?
We do know. So when our body is responding to stress, it increases cortisol and adrenaline, which are these stress hormones that actually make us more mentally agile, more able physically to handle the stress that we're experiencing. So it's actually a good thing that we start increasing these hormones, but once the stress is over, those hormone levels drop down, and there's some other chemicals in our bodies which are left over and can actually increase potential flare-ups of chronic conditions like fibromyalgia, lupus, depression, things like
really
that.
Accent some of the things you already have.
Exactly. Okay. And we're used to knowing that you could get sick after it, but it can actually cause those flare-ups as well.
Interesting, because I know several people with fibromyalgia, and I hadn't really thought about that relationship. But certainly stress and good stress can add to it.
Absolutely.
And if you have a chronic illness, it's really vulnerable to those kinds of stresses. You get those flare-ups if you already have a chronic illness.
Interesting. So is there a way we could start, like when we know we're in these patterns, which now, in hindsight, I look back and I realize some things I could have done, but what are some things people can do, especially right now? We are in the midst of the holidays, and I can't speak for others, but I know I've always felt it's my job to make things perfect. Break that magic. So it's a stress. It's a fun stress, but what are some tips that we can maybe provide everybody out there on dealing with it and staying healthy?
Well, they talk about de-stressing slowly. So in that de-stressing phase, when you know it's coming, find little things to do to deal with that. A little bit of exercise, sometimes even exercising for 5 minutes periodically throughout the day.
Spurts.
Even short spurts help. Things like meditating and yoga, taking care of yourself. Just the basic taking care of yourself. Can make a big difference in helping you deal with that. Avoiding getting sick during the letdown phase.
So when we're talking about it, I'm thinking, you're in the midst of it, and people would say, "Are you stressed?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm calmly stressed." Which you're like, "Well, yeah, I am," but I didn't really think about it. So how do we look inside and say, "Okay, I am stressed. I need to take these steps"? Because I think too often we're past the point to correct it. So, or maybe is it always correctable? Like, what are some things to reflect on ourselves to avoid this?
You could always. I think it's really important to be mindful of any experience that you're going through, even if it is fun or exciting, and to think about what you're doing to take care of yourself. So are you giving yourself 5 minutes to just be aware of how you're feeling? You could use things like deep breathing, which actually sort of help your body physiologically to relax and be more present. And so there are things that you can do even in the midst of whatever you're going through in the busyness of the holidays or the fun events that you have to be taking care of
You
yourself.
know, stress is a normal part of living. You
It
can't
is,
be
yes.
alive without
Yeah.
stress.
is
So
true.
that's really normal, and being aware, just the awareness of it and taking good care of yourself in the ways Cherisse talked about can make a big difference. And if you have a chronic disorder, then you want to take extra care of yourself and make sure that you're really staying
aware.
healthy and being aware of what's too much. And you can, you're allowed to say no.
Oh my gosh, that was one of my questions.
Yeah.
It's saying no, like that's
Yeah.
something I'm still learning.
That's a big one.
It is a
Saying
big
no. If you're doing the self-awareness techniques and you're starting to feel that overwhelmed feeling, learning to say no and set limits with yourself and with other people. Avoiding conversations that are stressful
Yes.
with certain family members or certain people who maybe you don't see eye to eye. Those kinds of things. So setting your limits is a good way to deal with it. But and the other thing is, of course, the holidays are for many people fun and wonderful,
Right.
but come with stress. And for other people, they're not so fun and wonderful.
No.
And so, not everybody comes from a Rockwellian family that,
Isn't that the truth? Yes.
everything's perfect. And even if you do come from a Rockwell type family, everything's not always perfect. So, being aware of those things and setting limits for yourself.
It's funny because one of my favorite sayings lately has been, "Don't let good be the enemy of perfect." Is that the saying?
I have that on a sticky note
Yes.
at my desk.
Because
Oh
I
my
think
goodness.
we try so hard to make
Yes.
everything perfect, especially moms are one. Obviously, I'm a
Yeah.
mom, so I've always tried to make it perfect for my family. But dads too. But it's like it's okay if it's good, not perfect.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
What are some other tips? Like as you were saying this, I'm thinking, gosh, what if I would have just put on my calendar, stop and take a breathing, or and it sounds silly to put it on my calendar, but I'm one of those people that if I write it down, I will do it.
Yeah.
So are there some tips like that we can kind of suggest that help people through this time to keep control of yourself in a healthy manner?
Yeah, there are, and we've talked about some of them, like exercising even for short bursts and meditation. And meditation can sound really like heavy. Meditation is just sitting quietly somewhere and doing some deep breathing. We've already talked about that, but some of it also is just the awareness, the recognition, and forgiving yourself a little bit if everything's not perfect.
I think what we're talking about a little bit too is actually balance. So having an idea of, even when you are really busy with the holidays or there are good things happening, finding a balance of where you're also taking care of yourself. And with the letdown effect, it's like, you've been really busy and then suddenly you're in a more relaxed state. Even then, finding a balance of where you are, staying a little bit active. And it's really just looking at how that balance is happening.
I was reading, and I made the error, so as soon as everything was over and I was exhausted, I plopped. I just laid down, and yet I was reading really one of the best things I could have done was don't plop, don't lay down, go out for that 30-minute walk, and to be active. What are some things, because I think the tendency is, I'm exhausted, I just want to lay down.
Yeah.
But how do we kind of train our brains to say, don't just do that? Like, give yourself permission to lay down a little, but what would be a healthy balance in that kind of situation?
Well, I think you hear this all the time, but if you've got yourself already in a schedule, like keeping a schedule, whether it's stressful or not stressful, but just keeping a routine. So whether that's a walk 3 times a week or spending time with your puppy, if you have a routine that you have already set for yourself,
really good advice.
then when you enter a stressful time, you already have a routine where you're doing some self-care.
That's really good.
There are things like staying away. I already talked about staying away from people who maybe make your life harder, but also being aware during the holidays there's a lot of put on you in terms of buying gifts and spending money and doing everything perfectly. So not falling into that trap.
To do what works for you.
Right.
And not be afraid of that.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's so good. Great advice. So with mental health and the holidays, what are some other things we should be thinking about and bigger picture with your mental health?
Well, we already talked about that. Stress is normal and a part of living, and there's a difference between stress and anxiety and depression, which are mental disorders and which are more chronic. They last a long time. Stress will be short term. Things like depression and anxiety will be more long term and something that you have to deal with for the long haul. If you know that you have those disorders, hopefully you've built up some techniques that help you deal with them. But it may also mean that you need some extra care. So spending time with people who are really a support to you, finding those people who are a support to you.
That makes such a difference.
There's also the idea that doing some volunteer work, giving back, and gives you some perspective on your own situation and that compared to other people's situation. And it's a way of meeting new people, of feeling like you're spending your time in a worthy way. That can really help when you're really feeling down. And for some people, I think also there's a difference between taking time for yourself and being alone versus loneliness. And if you're really feeling lonely, that's somewhere you don't want to go to. You want to make sure you're not isolating.
Yeah.
What might be some trigger points or things that you can identify that to help you understand, am I lonely or am I just kind of what's...
Yeah.
Am I momentarily lonely or am I really lonely?
Yeah, where there are situational things, if there has been loss or some grief before the holidays, or maybe this is the first time that you are spending the holiday without someone, I think a lot of people, that could be a trigger for them. And then, the stress itself during the holidays, the busyness, those types of things can very much be triggers. So those are some of the things that I was thinking of.
Yeah, and I think also in terms of knowing the difference between, is this normal life stress that I'm dealing with, or am I really dealing with depression or anxiety or a more serious mental disorder? So the differences you might look for are you're sort of not able to break out of it, you're not finding yourselves coming out of it, or the symptoms weigh on you so heavily that they affect your ability to kind of carry out your role.
It's really affecting you physically as well as mentally.
It affects you physically, but it also affects your ability to do the things that you normally do. So are you having trouble getting to work in the morning? Are you not getting the kids ready on time? So we talk about something moving into the mental disorder phase when it affects your ability to do the thing, to function as a wife, a mother, a husband, a worker. That's when you know, wow, I might be tilting over into something else, and that's where you want to find some help, whether that means a call line, whether that means finding a therapist, talking to your doctor even, who might be able to refer you to a therapist, support groups. Those are the kind of things that can really help. Yeah.
Which, by the way, we always forget to remind you, but if you have questions, please let us know, because we'll try and answer them right now, and if not, we'll answer them on Facebook afterwards. But that's the great thing about Health Happens. It's live and we can answer these, because we all go through this at some point. I was thinking back, I think when my daughter was 5, there was one day I spent 17 hours between cooking, wrapping, doing everything.
Oh my goodness.
And you think, oh my gosh, that was a long day. And that's normal, I think, for a lot of us. And so it's exhausting. And so I look at that and I think, okay, how could I have done that better?
Yeah, and also, not in a punitive way of how could I have done that better, but how could I have been more present for myself, or like been there in a way that
it's giving yourself permission that it's okay.
Yes, exactly. It's okay for those presents not to be wrapped, or dinner not to have that
That's
one side dish.
Yeah. Like doing it better might mean not doing as much.
That's so true.
That's hard
true
for people who are used to achieving a lot and being on top of everything. That's what we mean by taking care of yourself.
Does this weigh more on women or men, or is it equal? Do you see like a variance there?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's a
This
question
is
we could look up in the
because I'm just thinking, I'm always thinking from a woman's point of view, but there's men out there who are single dads, and this has to affect them as well.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot.
Yeah,
lots of those duties fall on women in our culture more than on men, but definitely that's changing. And I think it's true for everybody has a sort of a different level they can take.
Sure.
And it's different for everyone.
True.
And knowing what your level is part of
And I think you just said something really key, your level. Don't compare yourself to someone else.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think we get caught up in that.
It's easy to say that.
Yeah. I know, it's very easy
to say. Some of that is teaching yourself, just saying to yourself, stop when you find yourself. Just literally saying that word in your head when you start comparing yourself can be the beginning of making a difference.
Yeah.
Any other words of wisdom around the holidays and stress that we could give our viewers right now?
Well, it doesn't have to be what, the picture perfect, the Christmas card, the perfect New Year celebration. I think we do get disappointed around the holidays when things don't fall out the way we want to, but just be taking care of yourself and mindful of what you need.
And I always think, it's also okay to ask for help or to ask for support.
Oh my gosh, such great advice.
If you're starting to really feel that downness that comes sometimes for some people with the holidays, reaching out to people and saying, can we just go for a cup of coffee?
That is such good advice.
You'll find that most people really will respond to that.
Too.
Your friends, right? That's
exactly.
They need it too. And I think we're all afraid to say something.
Let's just go take a walk and not go shopping today.
I love that. That is great advice. Well, wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Do we have any questions coming forward? And I think we're good for
Awesome.
today. This has
Yeah.
been really great. We appreciate
great to meet
this
you.
so much and look forward to taking some of your advice.